All right, Jordan, we got a lot to talk about with this Clemson injury report. It is growing by the freaking day, I swear. The amount of names that are on this list um, is getting a little ridiculous at this
Yep.
point. I'm not going to lie. And the names that are on, not just the amount of names, but the names and the the contributors that they are is starting to become worrisome for this team, specifically along the offensive line. Before we get into every name on this list that we're going to talk about, I want to mention that Dabo Sweeney had an interview, obviously this week, like he does each and every week, on Tuesday, and said that 9 offensive linemen were not practicing on Tuesday, and I don't think that included the ones that we already know are gone for the season. So I don't know who along the offensive line practiced on Tuesday, but apparently it wasn't very many. So we are in a bad way. Matt Luke has got his work cut out for him this Saturday, I'm sure, piecing together an offensive line. But we're going to go ahead and jump into this injury report. I'm going to list off the names. And then once I'm done with that, Jordan, you can give your thoughts and highlight the ones that you think we really need to talk about. And then we'll deep dive into that offensive line and give our thoughts about it at the end as well. Tyler Brown out for the regular season officially. They're going to redshirt Tyler Brown, and he'll be back for the postseason. So I think he's pretty close to being able to play right now, if not being ready to play. But they're just going to hold him and get this season back because he spent the entire season injured, basically. Tristan Lay, still day to day. Marcus Tate, still day to day. I don't think they're playing in this game. I don't think either of those guys are playing in this game. I don't think they need to play in this game. I don't think they should play in this game. Elijah Thurman out for the season. He's got to get surgery. Dabo said tightrope type surgery with a plate. So obviously he's going to be out for the season. He did say it wasn't some long-term thing. So they hope to have him back by spring. So hopefully that's the case. Hopefully he can shake back because he's probably going to be a big contributor along this offensive line come next season. Troy Stellato, man, I hate this for Troy Stellato, dude. Like, this is a guy that has battled injury after injury after injury at Clemson. And here we go again with yet another injury. He tore a ligament in his thumb. Apparently, he's been battling with it for the past couple weeks, and he just feels like that he cannot contribute the way that he wants to anymore, and he needs to shut it down and have surgery. Um, I hate it for him just because of all the struggles that he's had and how well he started playing this season. He's had a really good season so far, and it's just unfortunate for him to have yet another setback. I know it's got to be maddening to him at this point with the amount of injuries that he's dealt with in his Clemson career, but we wish him a speedy recovery. And luckily for us, we will have him back next season, I hope. DeMonte Capehart had to have surgery. I think he had tightrope surgery as well. I mean, Clemson's just out here handing out tightrope surgery like it's, like Oprah used to hand out free cars to her audience or whatever it was. Wade Woodaz day to day with that soft tissue contusion that was on his thigh. Now they said it's kind of traveled down to his calf. So I don't expect him to play this week either. I think he's still pretty limited. RJ Mickens day to day. Shelton Lewis obviously out for the season. That's kind of the list of guys right now. Jordan, what are your thoughts on that list before we really dive into this offensive line and talk about them for a little bit?
Yeah, we talked about how I think at some point in the midpoint of the season we were talking about, man, all things considered, we're in pretty good shape injury wise. We have a couple of guys that are dinged up, a couple of guys were out, that are going to miss significant time. But compared to last season, boy,
Yeah,
man, we can ask for much more. But it seems like all of that just I decided to come back and bite us. The injury gods hurt us. I decided to strike at maybe the worst time, and so now you're in a really tight bind. Maybe not for this week. I mean, you'll be able to piece together a team good enough to beat the Citadel, but makes you worried about kind of the long term, the immediate short term in terms of next week, and what what whatever game you play beyond that is. Yeah, it just sucks, man. I mean, you mentioned losing Elijah Thurman. That's massive. Because you have two guys in Tristan Lay and Marcus Tate who are still, working their way back. Tristan Lay seems to be a lot farther along than Marcus at this point. Marcus has been dealing with his injury for a lot of the season as well.
Yeah.
So, it's having a guy like Elijah Thurman who's as talented as he is and as versatile as he is and can slot in basically wherever you need him to, and not have him now. I mean, now you're really digging in deep as far as your depth. And so it's disappointing, man. And then, Wade Woodaz, you missed him a good deal, especially with Sammy Brown, getting out with targeting. He'll be able to play this weekend because it was in the first half. So he'll be able to play in the first half against the Citadel. But it's your depth is really being tested, and in some of these spots you really can't afford to. Hopefully you get RJ Mickens back. I would expect him not to play too much on Saturday. I just think you're going to need him next week in a big way. You're in a tight bind right now. That's the reality. Hopefully you get like I mentioned, Tristan Lay and Marcus Tate are working their way back. I think you hold both of them, to be honest, and just and find a way, because I think the chances of you getting Tristan back are pretty good for next week. So don't do anything to kind of put him at risk for re-aggravating something or whatever, and just kind of taking it cautious from here, because you're in a very delicate situation right now roster wise. So. And that's not even without we're discussing the extent that the offensive line is banged up right now.
Yeah, I mean, let's go ahead and dive into the offensive line and the situation that we are in now. Obviously last week we rolled into Pittsburgh, figured out that Marcus Tate and Tristan Lay did not travel. Elijah Thurman was going to get the start at left tackle. Harris Sewell was going to get the start at left guard. Ryan Lithcom at center. Walker Parks at right guard. And Blake Miller at right tackle. That was the line heading into last week, and that lasted for all of one snap. When Elijah Thurman went down, got his ankle rolled up on, we saw the replay. It looked bad. It obviously is bad enough for him to need surgery. And then it was a hodgepodge offensive line at that point. You move Blake Miller over to left tackle to kind of try to keep Cade as clean as possible in the game with a very aggressive Pitt defense that you knew was going to come after you already. They're really going to come after you after you're playing musical chairs along the offensive line. Walker Parks moves over to right tackle. Harris Sewell moves to right guard. And you bring in Trent Howard at left guard, and obviously Ryan Lithcom still at the center position. What is this offensive line going to do coming into this Citadel game? Obviously, we're playing a team that is very outmatched. The game is not going to be close, you would assume, right? But with that said, I mentioned Dabo's comments earlier in the week, just yesterday, saying that 9 offensive linemen were not practicing as of Tuesday practice. Now, did more of them practice today? I don't know. But that doesn't bode well for this Clemson offensive line or Matt Luke. So what do you think this offensive line looks like? Not that it'll matter very much this week, but it will 100% matter come next week. And I don't know if all these injuries are going to be solved come kickoff against the South Carolina Gamecocks. And this could be a problem because they have a very good defense.
I mean, you hit on it. I mean, really, with this offensive line, man, having 9 guys out, and especially, not knowing, all the names that didn't practice on Tuesday. The hope is that, the way, the fact that he didn't say, those names, a lot of it it could potentially be precautionary with some of these guys. Maybe they're a little banged up, but not necessarily a scratch to play on Saturday against the Citadel. If you get the guys, that if everybody is healthy, that we know that we know aren't on the injury list right now, then potentially you could see the same lineup that you saw against Pitt. When Elijah Thurman went out, Blake Miller at left tackle or Walker Parks at right, but and Trent Howard at left, Ryan Linthicum, and then Harris Sewell at right guard. But I don't know. They're going to get real creative, I think, this week. I mean, that's something that Dabo talked about and Matt Luke has been kind of tasked to figure out kind of offensive line combinations, because they're going to have guys ready to go. Potentially you could see a Mason Wade, a Ronan O'Connell. Some of you're getting deeper into your depth chart. So you're going to have to find a way to piece something together for the Citadel that's functional. I think you will, but the hope is that you come out of that as unscathed as possible, and you get as many guys as you can back for next week, because you're going to need guys as close to 100% as possible going against that South Carolina defensive front.
Yeah, you're going to need all hands on deck come next week. And this offensive line that played this past Saturday against Pitt is not going to get it done. You need those guys to get healthy and get healthy in a hurry. So, which brings me to my next question, Jordan. Should Clemson rest? And if they do rest players, who should they rest? And how important is it to limit the snaps of some of these guys this Saturday against the Citadel?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, just with how delicate you are from an injury standpoint. I mean, some guys you might not be able to, some of your depth guys might not be able to rest, or rotational pieces might not be able to rest because you have guys injured. But I think more or less you need to see. I don't know if you'll see guys completely just not play. Like I could see Phil Moffitt getting a couple drives or something like that.
Yeah.
But I think the goal is to expose them to as little risk as possible, while still giving them an opportunity to get reps in. Because that's one of the hardest things. So I think from a wide receiver standpoint, I mean, you mentioned Troy Stellato going out. That's massive. That's a massive loss for you in your wide receiver rotation. So I mean, but it's going to give some of the younger guys more more burn. We haven't seen much of Noble Johnson. Tink Kelly played in a couple of spots earlier in the year, but beyond that, we haven't seen much. And of course, you're already down Tyler Brown. So I think you try to keep Antonio healthy. You definitely need him for next week. TJ and Bryant as well. Give Brenny a couple of drives, but let OPH and Sapp and maybe you see Beneker, because he's only played one game this year, so he can play this week and next week and preserve his red shirt. And there are a few guys on the roster like that. I wish I had the list in front of me, because I believe Chapel Fowler of the State had a really good kind of breakdown of the guys that had played 1, 2, and 3 games and their kind of red shirt status. So I really think that you got to keep guys as healthy as possible while still giving an opportunity to rest, and we'll see how they choose to manage that. And I'm sure that's a big point of discussion in the on both sides of the football. But I mentioned a couple of guys. Defensive line, I would like to see some of your young guys. I think this is a really good opportunity to get a lot of young talent in, your Vic Burleys, your Stefan Green, who has played more in the rotation this as of late. Darian Mayo at defensive end, AJ Hoffler. Get those guys in, let them play. Put Armand Mason in. Play some of your higher caliber walk-ons if you have to. Rotate a ton, keep them fresh. Don't allow your Trey Williams or Peter Woods or TJ to get to log a lot of snaps, Jaheim, because you're going to need those guys next week.
Yeah. And you talk about guys last week like a Barrett Carter logging 90+ snaps in the game.
I might just give him like one defensive drive and say, all right, you're done.
And that's the thing, and that that was the next question I was going to ask you is what is that balance between we need to rest guys because guys need to be healthy for obviously the South Carolina game, but hopefully the postseason and what is to come there should we get the opportunity. But then how do you balance that with maybe we need to build maybe we need a couple series to build some confidence on offense and on defense and let those guys run out there and play free and have a couple confidence drives and then kind of roll out your 2 deep, your 3 deep, so on and so forth. What's your thoughts on that balance and kind of how you go about that heading into this game?
Yeah, I mean, in a game, I mean, and we'll talk about the Citadel. We obviously weren't going to give them like a huge like breakdown preview, but this is a team that they've been pretty underwhelming in the FCS this year. They have been changing they're much improved from last year. They were pretty awful last year, but they're in the process of changing their identity offensively. They're not an option team anymore, and so they're going to be throwing a lot at you. Dabo talked about it during the week. But I think it's a good opportunity to get a lot of guys some burn because you're playing a team that, again, has nothing to lose. This is their last game. So, you'll get to see a lot of different looks. You'll get to throw some guys into the fire. And I think, I think ultimately you need those guys to get that experience. And, I would like to see more, you err to that side more so than, trying to play your starters and keep them and get them a good amount of reps. But again, it's a tough thing to balance. And, I've never been a part of a coaching staff to kind of see how that process goes during the week. But, I do want to see, this, a lot of guys play. If you can get however many guys you can play them. We played. How many guys did we play against NC State? Like 100?
100, yeah.
Yeah. I would like to see the number get up there. Whoever's available.
I would like to see you – I'd like to see everybody that dresses go out there and get a snap. Hopefully the game goes in a way that you can do that. But also, just looking at that injury report that we just got finished going in depth on, that doesn't include the guys that – are banged up, and that's pretty much everybody on the team right now. But specifically, more guys than others. Like Phil Maffa, as of late, has really looked hampered. Looks like he's kind of nursing that shoulder. Doesn't look 100% at all. I would like to see him log as little snaps as possible. I honestly I know it's senior day. So he's probably going to play a little bit, but I do not want to see Phil Maffa out there very much. I would like to see him at a less than 5 carry mark.
This is the perfect opportunity to get the young backs in. I mean, Jay Haynes has completely disappeared. Get him on the football field. Get Keith Adams Jr. in.
Absolutely.
Let
Jarvis Green get in there. Let
Jarvis Green, David Ajumamme or Iziamume, and get him in. Whoever help play Peyton Strecco, give him some good burn.
I don't care who you play, just don't play Phil Maffa.
Yeah,
anybody not named Phil Maffa needs to be the running back in this game on Saturday.
I think John put it perfectly. Let Maffa get 1K. I think that would be I mean, give him the opportunity to get to 1,000 because he should have had it last week, but
he should have. I think he's sitting at 998 yards right now. Total yards rushing for the season. So he needs 2 yards. So take him out there, first play of the game, run Phil Maffa, let him get 1,000 yards, and then put his butt on the sideline for the rest of the day. One play, one carry, get him over 1,000 yards, and then that's it. Let him sit down for the rest of the day. Take his helmet, take his shoulder pad. I don't care what you got to do. Get that guy out of there. We're going to need him for the home stretch, and he looks far less than 100%. I know everybody's banged up at this point in time in the season, but if you just look at Phil Maffa running the past couple of weeks, he does not look the same. He's banged up. So give him a week to kind of get right, and I think that'll go a long way. Same thing with some of your guys on offense. You mentioned Williams. I wouldn't. I'd like to see him not log as many snaps. Your big guys that you don't necessarily need. Get as many people rest as you can, I think is the motto going out there. And obviously it'll depend on how the game goes. As we always say, anything can happen in college football. But if you're in trouble against the Citadel, especially this Citadel team, no disrespect, but we probably got some other things to talk about it.
Right. Especially since, the Citadel, in years past, when you've played the Citadel, it's been a special prep because it's an option team. Like you have to dedicate some time because they can cut you if you're not assignment sound. But they're definitely more of a traditional spread team this year. Lot RPO concepts, more of what you've seen this year. So it'll be you'll get some good coachable moments, but it won't be like, okay, we need guys that are experienced and know what they're looking at to play a decent bit. So we come out of here with the game looking, not having to sweat this one out longer than we have to.
Absolutely.
So it'll be a good opportunity to play a lot of these guys because it's not, they're not necessarily a special what they call a special prep because they don't run anything that you haven't seen before.